Stand at attention.
Good afternoon. We'll call a regular meeting of the New Ulm Planning Commission of New Ulm, Minnesota to order. This Thursday, June 28th, 2018, 4:30 p.m. Item 1A is a public hearing. Consider the application of New Ulm School Limited Partnership requesting a variance to permit the construction of parking lot 27 feet 5 inches into the 30-foot front yard setback on property zoned R3 Multiple Family Residence District and legally described as Lot 1, Block 1, State Street Theater Subdivision, street address 15 North State.
All right, as stated in your packet, we're looking at the front yard setback variance for that for a parking lot. It is on the corner of State and First North is where they're proposing the parking lot at. You've got a map in your packet. That is the parking lot that they're looking to put into the front yard setback. The diagonal line coming across underneath that first arrow, that is the 40-foot safety triangle. So the parking lot will not impede into that area. And this, the reasoning for coming into the setback area is to accommodate more parking spaces in that parking lot to get to their allotted number that they need for their units.
Okay, is that it for you?
Yep.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody that wishes to speak on this matter, please step forward. State your name and address at the mic. No one here involved with this would wish to speak? One more time. Anyone that would speak, please step to the mic.
Hi there, Planning Commission. Heidi Rathman with Community Housing Development Corporation. As Mr. Zabel outlined, we are proposing an additional 27 on-site stalls. The intent of this is with a total of 55 units and the adjacent parking that's available for the theater. We just want to ensure we have a minimal number of cars parked along the street. And so to do that and to maximize that corner, we do need a variance to be able to maximize that new surface lot. So there's 27 new stalls that are proposed in that, and then an additional 47 stalls that are on the existing parking lot that is owned by the school parcel, and then additional theater parking stalls as well. So that gets us to the city's zoning requirement, along with an additional 9 dedicated on-street stalls that the council reviewed about 2 weeks ago.
Questions?
Question.
Will this take all the way out and then eliminate the sidewalk?
No, the sidewalk remains. Yep.
Right, we're about 2.5 feet behind the sidewalk yet.
So the sidewalk will remain intact with space.
Correct. Yep. It's just that the R3 zone requires a 30-foot setback off the front yard. We're on the corner, so we've got 2 front yard setbacks that we're dealing with. And that's where it's coming in.
Yeah, I think if you look at the site plan, you will note on First North Street that there is approximately a 15-foot setback from the property line. And then in addition to that, there is additional right-of-way before you reach the sidewalk. And you have the same situation on North State Street. So there's more than 2.7 inches of distance until you get to the sidewalk.
Okay. Got some?
Yeah, maybe for staff, did we receive any written or oral complaints from any of the neighbors?
I received nothing.
I'm going to back up a little bit. I'm going to assume that in this whole process, there was a development agreement put forth based on 45 units?
55 units.
It was? And that development agreement was put together was deemed adequate for parking?
So the development agreement hasn't been finalized yet. It's in with your city attorney currently, being drafted, and that is expected to go to the council later this month. And so per your zoning code, we need 83 stalls total. So with the 27 of this new proposed surface lot, the 47 and the 9 dedicated on-street stalls, we get to that without needing a variance. So what we were trying to do with the setback on the new surface lot was to maximize that parking rather than having more on-street parking. So that then kind of triggered the setback variance.
Yeah, I should note that the development agreement that was referenced is associated with the tax increment financing district that is proposed to be established. Issues associated with the zoning of the property, setbacks, parking spaces, that type of thing. In most cases, we don't have a development agreement specifically for those items.
Well, that was the reason for my question. If there was already a development agreement in process, and now we change it, I would have some difficulties with that. But you're telling me it's in process. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I've got my questions answered. Anything else? Anyone else in the audience that wish to speak to this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing and decide what we would like to do.
I'll make a motion recommending approval of the variance request.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second approving the variance request as described. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. This will now go to the city council meeting on, is it next Tuesday?
Well, actually, this one will go at the second city council meeting in July. They have other items coming forth at that meeting, so they just want to do them all at once.
Okay. Right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 1B is also a public hearing. Consider the application of New Ulm School Limited Partnership requesting a variance to reduce the land density requirements for a housing project on property zoned R3 and legally described as Lot 1, Block 1, State Street, Theater Subdivision, street address 15 North State Street.
All right, so we're dealing with the same property again. We're looking at the lot density this time. The minimum lot the minimum lot area for a R3 is 10,000 square feet. As you can see in your packet here, the minimum lot area per dwelling unit is 2,000 square feet. You've got some subtractions due to usage of streets and where the property is sitting if it's up against a business district. But then you also have at the bottom one, for each bedroom in excess of 2 in any one dwelling unit, you add 400 square feet to the process. So with the math involved in that, we've got 55 units, 2,000 square feet, so we need 110,000 square feet. Our actual lot area is 85,818, which gives us 45.82 units that would be allowed in that lot area. So we're looking for variance that they want to do 55 units with, so we're looking for that variance of 10 units. As you can see at the bottom there, we've got similar housing projects, Broadway House, St. Michael's, and most recently the Highland Regency up on North Highland, that they've came in for the same variance request.
Okay, again, this is a public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak on the matter, please step to the microphone.
Hi there. So I think this is pretty typical of an adaptive reuse and similar to other projects we've done where there's an existing structure, and just for the economics of the project, we want to be able to maximize the housing units on site. But I think what is featured in this project is that the common space is just significantly larger than the residential space that's in a typical apartment building. Our corridors are about twice the width. The common space is probably about 3 times the size of what you'd find in a 55-unit apartment building. So although it is a density bonus that we're requesting, I think that this building is just a little unique in that it's not going to feel like a huge 55-unit building given the fact that it sits on an entire city block and given the amount of common space that's in the building.
Okay. Have you had any conversations with your counterpart there with the State Street Theater organization on both of these matters?
Yes, extensive, in fact, yeah. We've been working with them in partnership for, since fall, since we took over ownership. So they are very aware of our plans, and we keep them in the loop as much as we can.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing and take action from here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd make a motion to grant the variance.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second granting the variance as requested. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Same thing, back to council meeting. Item 1C is also a public hearing. Consider the application of Beth and Jason Vavra requesting a conditional use permit to place a special purpose fence on property zoned R1 Single Family Residence District and legally described as lots 3 and 4, outlot 362, Snowbreak and Fritchie subdivision, street address 511 Summit Avenue.
Okay, members of the Planning Commission, subject property is zoned R1 Single Family Residence District. Notice of the public hearing has been provided to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject property. Property is generally located east of Summit Avenue and south of Center Street. The city's fence regulations are found in Section 9.14, Subdivision 6 of the City Code. The applicant has constructed a fence with a height of 72 inches, which is 6 feet, in the front and side yard area on the north property line of the parcel. The applicant secured a fence permit but installed the fence prior to on-site review by city staff. The maximum permitted height of a fence in the front yard area is 4 feet. The permitted height beyond the front yard area is 78 inches. The front yard area is defined as the first 30 feet of the property. So for 30 feet, you're supposed to be at 4 feet. Beyond that, you can be at 6.5 feet. Fences taller than the height limitations are permitted with a conditional use permit. The applicant provided the following information on their request. The fence is located about 30 feet off Summit Avenue. There is adequate visibility from both sides of the street when backing out of the driveway. The fence will provide privacy and safety for the family. The request does not adversely impact surrounding properties. As measured by city staff, the new fence is located 9 feet from the front property line and 19 feet from the face of the curb. As a result, the non-conforming portion of the fence totals 21 feet. The residence is located approximately 70 feet from the front property line. So the residence really sits back. So again, the 4 feet is for the first 30 feet, and then it's higher after that. In order to recommend approval, the commission will need to determine that the request complies with the conditions required for the granting of a conditional use permit. The reverse side of the application lists the 7 conditions and the applicant's response to them. An 8th question asks, why should the city approve your request? The applicant's response was, we are asking approval of our 6-foot privacy fence to ensure the privacy of our children and ourselves. The known sex offender, which whom we share a property line, has been watching our children in our yard on our property. We have the right to protect our family and feel safe in our own yard. Definition of a fence means a barrier enclosing or bordering a parcel of real property or any portion thereof made of vegetation, wood, stone, masonry, metal, or synthetic materials. Permitted fence locations. The purpose for limiting a fence height to 4 feet in the front yard area was to, 1, maintain an open front yard and front door area, and 2, allow adjoining property owners to view the street and sidewalk areas on either side of their property. Attached is a copy of the application with a site plan. There's a location map, 5 ground level photographs, and a letter from an area property owner. I might note that I also received a phone call on this particular request. That particular individual did not have any objection to the request. His only comment, though, was that he did not want to see 6.5-foot high fences all the way to the front property line, you know, the entire length of Summit Avenue. Wouldn't look good. If the commission recommends approval of the request, the staff would recommend consideration of the following conditions. 1, applicant will pay the cost to record the permit with the Brown County Recorder's Office. 2, or B, if there is a change in ownership or occupancy of the applicant's property, that's at 511 Summit Avenue, or the property directly to the north, that's 501 Summit Avenue, the installed fence will be brought into compliance with city fence regulations within 3 months of the change. Then item C, the permit is limited to the location and dimensions of the newly installed fence located in the front yard area on the north property line of the parcel. There are 2 potential motions listed. One is a motion to recommend approval. The second is a motion to deny. I would, recommend to you that whichever motion you decide to make, that reason should be provided for it. That concludes the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Again, this is a public hearing, so anyone that would wish to speak on this matter, please come forward. Your name and address at the mic.
My name is Charles Lidke, and I live at 501 Summit Avenue. I'm on the north side of the property that's in question. I think the city code for the 4-foot fence is good. I don't really see any reason for a 6-foot fence. I have not been watching their children. If I come and go and the children are in the yard, I look at them and I go into my house or I go and get my mail. Yes, 15 some years ago, I made a bad mistake. I downloaded stuff on my computer in the house. But that's 15 years ago, and I would like to put that in the past and forget about it. There is no such wall on Summit Avenue anywhere. And I don't think it's appropriate to have it there either. The city code is there for a purpose, and I don't think it should be laid aside lightly.
Okay.
I'm sorry that this has all come up again. I have never in my life said an untoward remark or compromising remark to anybody. And I think the people next door would have to show proof that I have ever, and I never have, touched anybody in an inappropriate way. So I think the phobia that they have, I think it would be wonderful for them to use that wall and wall off their backyard, because there's, I'll just say, a lot of clutter there. And that could be a very nice Shangri-La for their girls to play in.
Okay.
And that would be an improvement on Summit Avenue. Nobody else has the clutter, debris, I would say, that's in that yard. And that I can see from my window. So those are my thoughts.
Are you opposed of the aesthetics of the fence or
Yeah.
just?
Yes, I don't think it belongs there. There's nothing like it anywhere on Summit Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? State your name and address.
All right. Hi. I'm Jason Vavra. I'm on 511 Summit Avenue, right next. I'm the one that put the fence up. We bought the house 5 years ago. Loved the area. Weren't told about this whatsoever from the realtors. We asked the realtors. We have a small boy and a daughter. And I understand it's 15 years ago. We just want privacy. That's all we're asking for. The problem with our yard is that our yard is the front yard is basically where the kids have to play. Because the backyard has the steep hillside, if you know Summit, if you've seen pictures. We are remodeling, trying to make it look better. So I would agree. I have more clutter, or had more clutter there than I really wanted to. My wife would agree with me on that too.
On a daily basis.
On a daily
I agree.
basis, I am trying to work on stuff as I can, and I can afford it. And we have made it nicer and nicer for the kids to try to play in the backyard, but our front yard is where we let them play, ride their bikes. It just happens. If the driveway would actually be on the other side, over by other neighbors, this probably wouldn't be a question, but our driveway is over there. And, I mean, he has no choice. He will have to look into the driveway, and the kids will play out there. And that's all we're really asking for is just, and it will go down. The fence isn't, it's not a permanent, I didn't put cement in the ground. It's actually, they have the spikes that you can put in the ground now that are quick pull out if you need to. So it'll take me a couple screws and I can take it down. I would have to take it down if you guys told me to, of course, but that would be what would happen, and I would abide by that 110%. Or we move, it would take it down too.
I'm Beth Favra. Obviously, my address is 511 Summit Avenue. I am asking for this variance. I believe it's a reasonable thing to ask. Our neighbor, we don't have a whole lot of contact with him. He's never said a crossword to us. He has not approached our children. But the handyman that he has there has told us on various occasions how our neighbor has noticed our children doing different things. Any other neighbor, it wouldn't be a problem. But we know the past, and it wasn't just a one-time thing. And I understand him wanting to forget the past, but that's not what can happen. What happened was with children, and we have children. My son eventually and my daughter are growing up, And I would like to be able to feel comfortable letting my children go outside on their own. We have discussed with our children not to go into the yards. Our other neighbors are completely fine with it. And actually, I understand his frustration about having debris in the back. Our other neighbors' Fenskys are absolutely fine with it. It's in the backyard. It's not anything noticeable. And we actually have a letter here, if you don't mind me reading it. It says, "To whom it may concern, we live right next door to Beth and Jason Vavra at 519 Summit Avenue. We have no concern with their fence. I have spoken to our neighbors at 601 Summit, Robert and Liz Henenthal. They have no concerns with a fence. I have also spoke with Jean and Julie Roth, who live across the street. They also have no concerns with a fence. Hopefully this will help. Susie and Tom Fensky." We just want to have a place where we all can feel comfortable going outside. Like I said, he has not approached us. He has spoken to me before, very limited. But what has triggered it is he has every right to be in his yard. And I'm not saying he can't be in his yard. We have, over the last 2 years, noticed him in his yard more when we're outside. And like I said, he has every right to be out there. But we also have a right to feel that we can be out there with our children and feel safe and have privacy. And I don't want to offend him, but I can't help it. Like, we just want to feel, we didn't have any clue that we were moving next to a convicted felon. He has served his time, and I understand that. And I know he wants to put it in the past, but we can't. And we want to live there for a long time and have our family grow up there. And we just don't feel comfortable. And so we ask, and I believe it's a reasonable request, that you guys accept our application for the variance of this fence. And as you said, as my husband said, it can be taken down at any point in time if we should move or if our neighbors should move. So we just ask that you guys accept it and motion for the approval.
When you got your permit for that fence?
Yes.
Were any of the requirements for the fence discussed with
Yes.
you prior to putting a
Yes.
small fence in?
And she told me I could put 6.5 foot fence, and I wrote out the dimensions, and she asked that we have like a drawn out warehouses where we plan to have the fence, and she said that she made a mistake in telling us that, or not telling us that we needed a 4.5 foot fence. We didn't know that at the time. And so we constructed a majority of the fence, actually pretty much all of it. And then it was brought to our attention that the property from basically where our garage is to where we started the fence should be 4.5 feet. And that was after we had already paid the permit. And we had talked, actually twice, we had talked to the gal in the zoning department. And both times she said 6.5 foot was what was code. So no, we did not put it up knowing that it was 4.5 feet.
No matter what, you're gonna have a fence up there, even if it has to be 4.5 feet, correct? You want a
Yes,
fence.
yeah. 4.5 feet doesn't give us what we're requesting. We just want privacy.
I'm trying to help understand what you just said. I mean, you went for a permit to get a fence,
Yep,
and you put the fence in that's there now,
right.
and now you're saying you want a different fence for privacy. I mean,
No, we have a 6.5 foot fence right now, and we put a 6 foot fence up, and then afterwards, Mr. Zabel came to our door and said that code is actually 4.5. So it was already up after we had talked to the gal at the zoning desk, and she had told us 6.5 feet was what was regulation. So no, we want to keep the fence that we have up, and we plan to paint it. We're going to landscape around it, and it will look really nice. And it actually, to be honest, it looks fantastic from his side, with all of the trees and everything. So yeah, no, we don't want to change it out. We want to keep what we have.
okay. Anyone else like to speak on this matter? one more question. Now, this is an advisory board, and we can deal with a fence, but I don't know that we have any authority to deal with any of the legalities of something else. So have you pursued any other avenues other than this fence to take care of the other problem you're talking about?
No, and this is the thing. We want him to live his life. We want to live our life. So we don't want to make it a huge matter. We didn't realize that this was going to turn into this. That's why we called and asked what the regulations were. We didn't ask this when we moved here, you know, because it's not public knowledge, though everyone knows.
That's
And
where Dave, we had talked to Dave about it.
Dave Borkert.
Dave, and he's here today too for us to explain what really went on and stuff, because we had
If
heard from our
need
neighbors,
be.
and then Dave had helped us through understanding.
And that was about a year and a half into after we moved here. And like I said, we feel it's reasonable to have this request if you guys should accept it. We want privacy, first and foremost, safety. And I'm not saying that he's going to approach our children. I'm not saying that. I want him to be able to do what he wants to do in his yard, and for us not to feel unsafe. And allow him, you know, he put up this beautiful new patio back in his backyard. I want him to be able to enjoy that. If he's out there enjoying it, we will come inside. And I just feel like we shouldn't have to feel like that when we have our own house, our own property. We want to spend our lives in this house with our children. And I don't want to feel that way. And I will say it again. I want him to feel that he can do what he wants in his yard, and for us to feel like we can do what we want in our yard. And he is extremely annoyed with our construction and this is not directly from his mouth, but from his helper, that he thinks that my husband's lazy and he doesn't clean up his mess, which is not the case. My husband works like 70 hours a week, and on the weekends we're able to do things, and we are slowly doing them. And we ripped out a stairs, and we put in a deck, and we're just slowly doing it as we can afford it and are able. And we're going to get rid of all that stuff this summer. It was all put there last fall. And we've taken out windows, and we've put new windows in. And so, yes, there has been stuff on that side. But that's, like my husband said, where the garage is and where the driveway is, and that's how we'll get the stuff out. And no one can see it except for him, unfortunately. And we didn't do that on purpose to make him mad. It was just that's where it went. And this fence is going to stop him from having to look at our mess. So,
Okay. Sounds like you've done a lot of work. We'll listen to whatever anyone has to say. But again, we're an advisory board, and we deal with what the city charter and what the rules and regulations are.
yep.
And even if we agreed 100% with everything that you said and want to do exactly what you want to do, whatever decision we make will also has the possibility of setting a precedence for the entire city. So it goes far beyond just your situation. You understand that we have to look at it in maybe a little different way?
Absolutely. And I understand there's been other, people that have come up with a similar variance with putting fences in their front yard. I believe there was one that had, they had a higher elevation. They put a fence and it went over 6 feet, and that was accepted. And they wanted privacy for their family, and they didn't have the reason that we do. And so I really hope and that's why I feel like this is extremely reasonable to ask this. And I really hope that you guys will take into consideration other people that have also asked for a variance in the same manner as we have, and consider that as well.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else wish to
Thank you.
speak? Pro or con? One more time, anyone else wish to speak? Not, we'll close the public hearing and decide what we want to do. What are your thoughts?
Mr. Schreiber, has there been any other variances granted like this? Any higher variances than 4.5 feet?
Well, first of all, the height limit is 4 feet.
Yeah,
4
it's
feet,
4
okay,
feet in the
excuse me.
front yard, yeah.
Yeah. The fence conditional use permit that was issued in the front yard area was topographically different. You may remember where the house was set down
Oh, yeah.
and it
I remember that one.
banked up to a sidewalk.
Yep.
So even though the fence is at that height, when you look at it, you know, you're, from a sidewalk
Yep.
level, it looks, it's,
Yeah, I
you know,
remember that one.
looks, you know, fairly appropriate in that location. So, topography is different in this particular case. To my knowledge, that's,
The only other one was a sports court up on 11th North
yeah.
with, where they put up
Oh, yeah.
taller fence to keep the
Remember
tennis
that one,
balls
too.
and basketballs and stuff
Mhm.
from going out.
Yeah.
And that was a wired fence, that was not a,
Correct, that was, yeah, it was a
Yeah.
chain link.
a chain link,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess I'd like to make a couple comments. I mean, I think it looks complimentary there. I could see, you know, envision that kids are playing in the driveway there. It's an oversized driveway. If they've got a ball or this and that, you know, it's gonna keep the, you know, toys in the yard, I think. And it's it's heavily dense. It looks like that from the pictures that I've reviewed there that the staff has provided. So I think, it could be, you know, it would be okay.
Does that mean you're gonna make a motion?
I'm just having discussion. I'm just stating my thoughts. By it.
How long has the fence been up?
Just 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
We started right, the day we got.
So we're talking about this white fence here.
No.
No, on the side.
This right there.
Right
I've
there.
driven by it every day, I've never ever noticed it.
It looks great.
It's so dense in there.
Does the variance travel with the house, or is it permanent? I mean, if they'd sell the house here in 2 weeks, or let's say a month or 2 years.
Well, if there are no conditions stating otherwise, it stays with the property.
Yeah, that was in here. If there's a change in ownership on either.
So what are we saying? Were you looking at allowing it because of the conditions of the neighbor?
If I might interrupt, your decision needs to be based on the conditions that are on the back of the application form. Those are the standards that you have to use in whether or not to approve the request.
Mhm. I don't know what to do here. What if we can't make a decision? What if we don't make a motion?
Well, you have the, ability to, I guess, send it to the city council, I suppose, without a motion or without a recommendation.
This is kind of a,
I would make a motion to approve it with the conditions that if the house was sold, that it would come down and be appropriate 4-foot fence.
I will second that. And my reasoning is this will create privacy. And I think it's, for kids' safety with keeping balls and toys in the owner's yard. Would be my reasons.
that's not
Okay,
on.
so would it be correct then that you feel that the request complies with the conditions for issuance of a conditional use
Correct.
permit?
Correct.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I have a little bit of trouble with this one as far as for a precedent setting for the future, but I'm gonna go along with it, so. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. This will go to the city council, I believe, on Tuesday, 4:30.
Go to
That'll be
Tuesday.
July 3rd.
Okay, moving on, done with the public hearings. Item 2, consider for approval a resolution finding the modified development program for Development District Number 1 and the tax increment financing plan for District H9 to be consistent with the city's general development plan.
Okay, this is an action that is required in order for the city to approve a tax increment financing district for the State Street Apartment project. So the applicant is the Community Housing Development Corporation. The owner is the New Ulm School Limited Partnership. The legal description of the property is Lot 1, Block 1, State Street Theater Subdivision. The street address is 15 North State Street. Property is zoned R3 Multiple Family Residence District. Property is bounded by North Washington, First North, North State, and Center Streets. Tax increment financing, it's also known as TIF, is a financial program available to cities which captures increases in property taxes paid by new private development and uses those funds to pay for eligible development activities. The Community Housing Development Corporation proposes to construct 55 units of rental housing at 15 North State Street. Establishment of the TIF district will require the developer to rent 40% of the units to families with incomes not greater than 60% of the Brown County median income. TIF assistance would be used to pay for land acquisition, public improvements, and other related development costs associated with the construction of this housing. It is the Planning Commission's responsibility to determine the compatibility of the proposed project with the city's general development plans or similar planning documents. Currently, the site is zoned R3, which is a multiple family residence district, and the property is designated for high-density residential land uses in the city's comprehensive plan. So those are two factors which state that this project is in compliance with the city's general development plans. Attached are a map of the site, that's from the TIF plan, a sample resolution, an aerial photograph, and 2 ground-level photographs. Staff would recommend that the Planning Commission approve the resolution finding the proposed TIF project to be consistent with the general development plans of the City of New Ulm, since the proposed use is permitted in the R3 zoning district and is compatible with the property's land use designation in the comprehensive plan.
I have a question. This was not a TIF district before, or is this coming again? It wasn't.
Yeah, this is
Okay.
the first time.
Okay. So all the past proposals for this property have been market rent.
Well,
Unit
the projects were initially proposed, but really didn't get very far into the development process. So I think one of the projects for sure would have been market rate. The second, we had some preliminary discussions with the developer about, the possibility, but it didn't go any further than that.
So all we need is a motion.
Well, what we need is to
Adopted.
have you approve the resolution. So this is kind of a first for the Planning Commission. You're being asked to actually adopt a resolution. And the only time you do this is when we have a TIF district under consideration.
But we can adopt it with just a motion, correct?
Well, you would adopt it as a resolution.
So can we get a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion approving the resolution establishing the TIF project district.
I'd second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye?
Well, we should, maybe this is one time we should probably call a roll.
Okay, that's what I was asking you.
Okay. Ms. Meyer,
Yes.
Mr. Golden,
Yes.
Mr. Mack,
Yes.
Chair Hogan?
Yes,
Okay. Motion is approved 4-0.
that's what I was asking, if we needed to go for the, anyhow, never mind. Item 3, receive report of city council decisions concerning the planning commission for June.
Okay, at the June 5th meeting, they approved the variance request of Bill and Joanne Brennan to permit the construction of a covered front porch addition 6 feet into the 30-foot front yard setback at 1510 Lee Avenue. They also approved the application with one condition of Brett Donner of DLC Manufacturing and Fabrication and Jeff Dietrich of New Ulm Economic Development Corporation for a conditional use permit to allow the location of a metal fabrication business on property zoned I-1 at 24 Sampson Street. They also approved the application with conditions of Jeff Bertrang on behalf of New Ulm Public Schools requesting a permit to allow the installation of an irrigation well at 1600 Oak Street. They received a communication at that meeting from Brett Donner on the proposed relocation of DLC to 24 Sampson Street and potential financial assistance available for that project from the city. And then they approved a resolution permitting or accepting the request of Community Housing Development Corporation to utilize on-street parking as designated resident parking for the State Street Apartment project. At the June 19th meeting, they received a communication from Seth Visser of Windings on the proposed relocation of their business to 15 Sampson Street and request potential financial assistance from the city for that project as well. And then they also at that meeting authorized a new position at here at City Hall. It's going to be a position called planner, and that individual would work full-time with Elwood and myself. And they've posted the position already, so we could have somebody on board within a couple of months. That might be optimistic, 2 or 3 months. That concludes the report.
Anything else from the Heritage Preservation Commission?
We did have a meeting this month. We did do a sign review for New Vera, New Telecom's rebranding. Just an update on the Kiesling House has been recited and new windows put in and everything's back in working order there. The downtown design guidelines, we got our final draft and closing that out. And the Herman condition assessment got pushed back due to the rain weather that we've been dealing with, and then it's now scheduled for July 16th and 17th. To have the assessment team come in and start. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the commissioners? If not, meeting adjourned.